I want to thank Elisa very much for having us, and Elisa Newber for having me as well. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I am in the demand reduction business, and I begin that at about 9 years old. My target audience is middle school students and their parents at the same time. The reason that I do that is that when I'm talking just to young people and they think it's a great idea and then they get up and they leave the auditorium, they get out onto their bus or they go home and they think to themselves, there is no way. I'm talking to my mom and dad about that. Ironically, or maybe not so, when I talk to just the grown-ups, they all do the same thing. They nod their heads and they say, yeah, you know what? You make a really good point. That's really important. I think that's great. And then they back their car out of the church parking lot and think to themselves, I am not going to talk to my kids about this. So my target audience is middle school students and their parents. Now, I have called this the third talk because parents will have a conversation with their young people about the birds and the bees. And then somewhere around middle school, a guidance counselor or a health teacher will have a conversation with your young person about anatomy, pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections, and then that's it. And then our kids are left on their own to go discover their own sexuality. And unfortunately, they do that online. Our underage American children are the largest viewing demographic of internet pornography in the world. My 2011 stats had it at 515 hardcore explicit videos viewed by underage kids in the United States of America every second of every day. After COVID, when, as Elisa was mentioning, kids were home by themselves, they're in front of their computers, I believe that those numbers have doubled. I put it up over 1,000. I believe by not talking to our young people, we are grooming an entire generation of predators. Simply because nobody in their life leaned over and said, you know, that's not real, don't you? You know that's not real. You know that pornography that you're watching, it's not real. It's easily done. We are able to do it. We have so far, with love, chosen not to. And I'm not with it. This content affects our kids physically, emotionally, psychologically, culturally, socially, spiritually, and comes at a time when they are the most susceptible to this influence. The single most important time for brain development of a young child is 0 to 4 years old. The second, 9 to 14. Not ironically, the exact time when they start watching internet pornography. Parents, for some reason, just won't wrap their heads around their 10-year-old daughter out in the front yard playing My Little Pony with her friends with butterfly wings on her back, comes in for a snack of celery, peanut butter, and little raisins on it, goes upstairs to watch 45 minutes of hardcore pornography with their friends, comes downstairs when they're called to set the table for dinner, and then falls asleep on the couch watching Caillou with mom and dad. And yet, that is exactly when it happens. On Friday, I'm going to show you another stat that shows that our kids are hiding this from their parents in ways that we really haven't thought about, and the only way to protect that is by conversation. So instead of telling you how bad this content is for our young people, I'm going to show you a video. This video is quite long, actually, but I want to assure you that I have allotted the proper amount of time for my time up here to have this video play. I was in a small college near where I live doing a human trafficking prevention symposium, and as I was cleaning up my screen and my cameras and all of that, several young people had stayed, all of them over the age of 18 except for one who is 17, and you will see her face blocked. And they said, "Hey, is this what you do for a living?" And I said, "Yeah, it is. I also have this nonprofit. I keep kids from watching porn." And they said, "Oh my gosh, porn, that's what happened to me. This is, you know," and then the next person said the same thing, and the next person said the same thing, and the next person said the same thing. And I said, "You know what, would you be willing to just come in here tomorrow and just say all that onto a video?" And they did, and if we can please play that video, this is the result.
Hey, moms.
Being uncomfortable is not a good enough reason not to have that conversation from the mouths of a 17-year-old girl whose first 5 experiences she now realizes was sexual assault. Being uncomfortable is not a good enough reason not to have that conversation. I would look out into this audience and I would say, "Okay, grown-ups, whose fear is more important here? Mine? Yours? Or is it your 9 or 10-year-old child who is going to go online, look up the most innocent possible search they could find, what do girls look like naked, and see the most abhorrent, inappropriate content that will stick in their mind for the rest of their lives?" She also said, "I would have been really uncomfortable if my dad had started talking to me about this, but I was more uncomfortable when I went through sexual assault and nobody told me about it." When you talk to your young people, I want to leave you with this. Understand, 9, 10, 11 years old, it is not their fault. It is not their fault. They did not create smartphones. They did not create the internet. They did not create the natural, normal, healthy, God-given interest that we all have in other human beings, relationships, and even physical intimacy. It is not their fault. And when you have this conversation with your young people, you be sure to be rolling that through your head at all times. We can blame us. We can blame grown-ups. We can blame Verizon. We can blame Google. We can blame Apple. There's a whole lot of blame to be going around, but it has nothing to do with our young people. Tomorrow I'm going to give you some real-life anecdotes about how you have that conversation, and certainly on Friday at Elisa's permission, I'm going to scare you on Halloween with the stats that come from our children watching this content. I want to thank you very much.
My question is for the fellow on the end. I am raising a 10-year-old boy by myself. Actually, I'm doing it with my son. My son is a single dad. My daughter was a single mother. She passed away, and now I've adopted her child. So there's 4 of us in the house. We got a 13-year-old boy and a 10-year-old boy. How do we protect them from pornography?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's communication and conversation. And in no uncertain terms, your responsibility is to be the listening side of that conversation. I tell parents all the time, we cannot authentically be dictatorial about this topic because we did not grow up with a cell phone in our back pocket with 100 million pornography videos on it given to us by our parents. So we need to listen. And when they start talking, don't interrupt. I have worked in schools and churches and in hundreds of individual homes in the state of North Carolina, and with my own eyes, I have watched young people talk themselves out of watching internet pornography while their parents sat back and went, huh, really? Okay, wow, no way, really? I didn't know. That's cool. One of the 3 most important words a parent can say to their young people in that situation is, I didn't know. Because you don't. Yeah. Oh, right. And the planting it in their head. I love this question. By the way, I'm so excited to be having this conversation. Thank you so much for asking me this. The planting the question in their head, right? Let me offer this. 97% of boys and 68% of girls are going to see internet pornography on purpose before they leave high school. Boys at the age of 15 are watching 7 porn videos a day on the average. That's 10,000 before they leave high school. Okay? Are you going to plant that seed in your head? Maybe. Are they going to see it with or without you planting that seed in their head? Yeah. My daughter goes to college, and I did not want her anywhere near a fraternity house. Certainly I didn't want her drinking alcohol, and I certainly didn't want her kissing fraternity brothers at a fraternity house. But you better believe that I brought that up because I wasn't going to let the first time that this came up for her be at a fraternity house while she was drinking alcohol, kissing boys. No way. I said, you know what? Let's talk about this, even though I don't want to. When I began that presentation, I said, whose fear is more important? It is not ours. And let me offer how this happens for our young people and why I believe that prevention needs to happen early. Okay? Our kids are going to see this on a school bus, at a sleepover. Somebody leans across the aisle and says, have you seen this? Right? And they're immediately intrigued, and then they want to go look at it. And what happens is that dopamine floods their brain. This is incredibly interesting to them. And by pressing that button on their phone, they are letting the pornography industry that owns that video let them know that that phone is available for ads. So now they're watching it. The 2 last people in the Word they're going to talk to about this are the 2 people sitting down eating Cheerios with them in the morning, best mom and dad. But when they go to school and the teacher doesn't say anything, and the counselor doesn't say anything, and the health teacher doesn't say anything, and the nurse doesn't say anything, and the district safety supervisor doesn't say anything, and the vice principal doesn't say anything, and the superintendent doesn't say anything, and the parents don't say anything, our children believe that this content is real, and when that happens, they create neural pathways in their brain that make this impossible not to see. They never exercise the muscle of saying, hi, how you doing? I'm John, great at basketball, pretty good at math, working on science. Would you like to study science with me after school? Our boys go all the way through high school without ever having to do that. And so then they get to college with a river of alcohol and no parental supervision, and they say to the women that they think are interesting, sup. And it just doesn't work. And so they think to themselves, the only way that I can get what I feel like I deserve or what I need or what I'm entitled to is to pay for it. That is why I'm saying we are grooming a generation of predators simply by not talking to young children about avoiding this content.
And so I'm thankful that you all are doing this in a church because so many churches are afraid to touch on these subjects, and we have to talk about these taboo subjects to our kids to protect them and our communities.
For exactly the reasons that you just articulated, the churches are the problem. And in addition, very quickly, the churches are also the solution.
Yep.
This is exactly what we should be talking about, and this is exactly where we should be talking about it. I will tell you that in my experience, I am really trying to focus on parents because it has been easier for me than trying to get into a school or get into a church or something like that. I went to a Christian, all-boys Christian school near where I live. And I gave 2 presentations in the same day, one to the 9th and 10th graders and one to the 11th and 12th graders. A month later, I went back to that school just to find out how it went. And the football coach sat down next to me and he said, John, I want to tell you, unbeknownst to the coaches, the teachers, or the advisors, our entire football program, JV and varsity, met in the locker room to try to figure out how they could keep each other from watching internet pornography. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I'm on the planet. That's the greatest news I've ever heard. As I went to get into my truck as I was leaving, what I didn't say to them was, it took me 11 months to get into that school. Without the schools and the churches reaching out, it is incredibly difficult to go that route.